Harold of England was celebrating his victory at York by a great feast a few nights after the Battle of Stamford Bridge, when a message was brought to him that William of Normandy had crossed the Channel and landed in Sussex with the large mercenary host that he had gathered. Harold hurried southwards with his housecarls, bidding Earls Edwine and Morcar bring on the levies of Mercia and Northumbria to his aid as fast as they might. But the envious sons of Epochs, which is Edwine and Morcar, but betrayed their brother-in-law because he'd married their sister.
Right.
So this is a big thing that comes up. Have they deliberately done that? Have they betrayed him? Are they arch traitors or no? But we're told that they betrayed his brother-in-law and followed so slowly that they never overtook him. Harold marched rapidly on London and gathered up the fired of East Anglia, Kent and Wessex, so that he reached the coast with a considerable army, though it was one far inferior in numbers to William's vast host. Not a man from Mercia or Northumbria was with him, but the levies of the southern shires, where the house of Godwin was so well loved, were present in full force. Okay. So there we go. Just to let you know that I'm sort of not making any of this up.
No,
There's a real historian saying these things. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's get back to the battle scene.
So
at Senlac Hill. So
early in the morning as well.
Yeah, very early in the morning. It seems that Harold's plan to try and catch them unawares, once he gets within sort of striking distance, once each other's scouts sort of start feeling each other out, it's done with. Because William the Conqueror has scouting parties and things. Yeah. He's no fool. No. He's not going to be caught unawares by anyone. You don't do that to the Conqueror. And so any attempt to sort of catch them at sort of first light or anything is foiled. And so William has his army up at sunrise, ready to march. He knows sort of roughly where they are, and so marches towards them. He's like ready to rock and roll. He's got to have this battle.
Yeah.
And so it seems that by something like 9 a.m., the Anglo-Saxons are lined up on the ridge, and the Normans are coming to meet them. Yeah. So it's a go. The game is afoot by sort of 9 a.m. We're told a couple of little details I love is that we're told that William the Conqueror put his hauberk on his chainmail vest. He put it on backwards.
Sure he did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he only wears this every day of his life.
Right.
I'm sure he put it on backwards.
Yeah, I wonder if he ever put it on backwards.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. It's like I put my jacket on backwards occasionally, you know, it just happens. Yeah. It's just a mistake you make.
Yeah. Again, it's like it bodes terribly for him. Yeah, but did it though? In the end, did it? But that is a line we're told. In William of Poitiers, we're told, quote, both sides had spotted each other in advance. A great line where William is supposed to have said to his inner entourage, now you shall see a duke transformed into a king.
Wow, that's...
well,
I mean, it happens.
Right.
Big talk, I suppose.
He's supposed to have worn some of the relics that Harold swore on around his neck in battle.
Yeah, that's momentous.
Yeah.
That's good, yeah.
Again, a bit perfect, but I don't necessarily doubt it if they were small enough. You know, if there's a tiny fragment of the original Christ's bones.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Or like the bone of some saint or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have done.
We're told that he lines up his army with archers on the sides, infantry up front, cavalry behind, sort of fairly standard setup really for those days.
Yeah.
He's supposed to have given sort of a rousing speech, which again modern scholars seem to all agree did definitely happen.
Yeah, undoubtedly. I imagine they both did.
Yeah. Apparently he says things like, remember, guys, we've got an unbroken record.
Yeah.
In France, anyway, I'm the man. I'm undefeated. Have faith in me. I know what I'm doing. Yeah. And the English, they're second-rate soldiers. Yeah, okay, he just beat Hardrada, but I mean, they're not even mounted.
Yeah.
Have a look. Come on, we've got this.
Yeah.
And saying, and remember, I'm not allowing any retreat. Just remember that. Yeah. That's not an option for you guys today.
I mean, where are you going to go?
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's a do or die conflict here.
You can't run back to France.
And he says, other than the big battle they just won at Stamford Bridge, they've been beaten loads of times in the previous few centuries. The Vikings smashed them up loads of times. So we can do this. One of the main sources, Robert Wace, Master Wace, he's the one that says that the armies were roughly the same size, And so modern scholars go, Wace. For this little aspect of it, we're going with Wace's account there. And just to mention, if it's not obvious, some bits in history are more or less pored over. And of course, the Battle of Hastings has been, every tiny aspect has been gone over and over and over and over again. So once again, I must say to anyone that knows their stuff inside out or read any of the original histories, if I say something ever so slightly different to what you think, well, it will be because there's more than one account. Like the Carmen and Poitiers disagree on things sometimes. Like when we get into it, the actual death of Harold.
Is it an arrow through the eye?
Some say it wasn't an arrow through the eye, it was a death squad. And they hacked him to bits. There was no arrow.
Yep.
But we'll get into that because there's a fair bit to say.
Yeah.
Okay. We're told that Harold, or the Anglo-Saxons, they ride to the battle, a lot of them ride to the battle on horse, and then very, very deliberately dismount.
Yeah.
Leave their horses behind.
Yeah.
Behind the battlefield.
Yep.
Entirely. And so that's what they do. Is a lot of them are sort of Danish or Danish adjacent people with big double-handed axes and all that sort of thing. And it's the famous shield wall.
Yep.
It's
a very solid defensive formation. So you've got a line of guys with big shields and that's a difficult thing to shift anyway. And then behind them, and apparently they could come out they can make gaps in the wall for the guys with the axes to come out and just start hacking at people. And so that's terrible. Because if you've ever seen the Dane axe, you wouldn't want to be hit by it. Like I've seen lots of videos, people like getting shields and smashing them with Dane axes, and they just go straight through them. These things just shatter the shields, and it's just like, right, okay, if that hit you, you'd be feeling it. It'd be a rough day.
It'd cleave you in half sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a tremendously powerful weapon, and so Harold's got probably like 1,000 of these guys or something. It's like, it's rough,
Like famously, the Roman gladius is a stabbing weapon, really.
Yeah.
And that's very good and efficient in its own way. But yeah, like a samurai sword is, for example, is much more for slashing, not really for poking at, is it? It's and these giant axes, they're for cleaving.
Yeah, they're for hammering something into the dirt.
Right, yeah, exactly.
That's what it's for, Just one big overhand swing, and then that's you suffering.
So some of the pro-Norman sources just say the English are, quote, unskilled in war. One of them even says that we didn't know about archery, which is just complete nonsense, It's just complete nonsense. Modern scholars scoff and laugh at that.
Well, we obviously know what bows were.
Of course we do. Again, they've been around since the Stone Age.
Yeah.
So, we know.
Yeah.
We're deliberately choosing that. It's the fashion,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So leave the horses behind. Unskilled in war.
Yeah.
Both Harold and William are right in the middle of their lines. They're both.
Yep.
Neither of them sort of hold back and sort of watch it from afar. They're both right in the thick of it. It does seem to be the case.
Yep.
So William apparently starts with an arrow shower. We're told William Poitiers says, quote, a harsh bray of trumpets. It's a nice turn of phrase, isn't it? And also. The arrows were like a storm. He actually says that. And the Norman infantry are called helmeted soldiers. And so to begin with, there seems to be some sort of shield wall on shield wall clash. That the Normans do have their own version of a shield wall, or an arrow shower, and then they send their own less good version of a shield wall up this slope, and it's just repulsed. Apparently, relatively easily.
The arrow shower probably did very little, right? Because you've just got you're firing arrows at guys who are all locked, shield on shield. What good is that?
Yeah, it's going to be hard enough when you're fighting uphill anyway, and they're better at that.
Yeah.
So, no wonder it didn't work. And so it seems like, so. I don't want to montage through it too quickly, but at least the next few hours, it would have been various attempts for the Normans to do this. Try a small cavalry charge on the side, another little arrow shower. Again, try push up the hill.
There were reports of the Norman cavalry riding up and then throwing javelins at the shield wall. But again, it's
all sorts of things like
that.
It's
a wall of shields. That's not how it's broken. You've got to push through it. And
these aren't like the English longbow of the 13th or 14th century or anything. So although we are told they do sometimes punch through shields and things, they're not. It's not like a devastating thing like the longbow.
It's not a 160-pound bow
Right.
with a man who's trained since childhood to use it. No.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. There's one little anecdote here I love. It's probably my favourite detail from the whole day. And it appears in some of the accounts and not in the others. So some historians have said this is made up, but I don't think it is. There's enough there, I think, to fairly safely say it's true. There was one Norman knight, Telefur, his name is. And at some point during the mid-morning, he tries to goad them down where there's sort of a break in the action for a while. He goes into sort of the no man's land or at the bottom of Senlac Hill and starts juggling his sword.
Yeah, I've heard
throwing it
this.
high in the air and
yeah.
goading the Anglo-Saxons. I just think that's a great image.
I think it's important to give people an impression of how that sort of thing's possible, right? Because like in ancient warfare, you used to get challenges, a champion to come out and fight and things like this. And so, like, a battle is a very interesting thing. Like, it's tiring, right? Everything you do is essentially tiring. So even if you're only carrying a spear and a shield, that's still heavy. And if you're covered in armor, that's even heavier, right? And so if you're going to go and attack a line, that's a big effort. There's a lot of, and then, you have like the sharp engagement. Oh, we're not going to break them, right? We're going to retreat. And if they're not going to chase you down, which sensibly at this part they don't, then you actually just have all the time in the world. Like if you're the one in control of it, and it's not like a modern war where there's just bullets flying around killing people. So okay, we've backed off and now no one's dying. So you can have an hour where no one's engaged in any kind of combat. Yep. No one's dying. You're recovering your breath. Right, okay, we'll have something to drink, have something to eat, recover our breath, and then we'll give it another go, And so, like, an ancient battle is very different to a modern battle, in that you get these, like, strong lulls in the fight often. And you can get back and forth and nothing can happen for, like, an hour or something. It's just really weird. Mm-hmm. We don't think about it, but, like, then you get these very short windows of time where the action is very, very hot. The engagement's very sharp, and like then it all comes to a head and it's resolved in that particular moment.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. So it's funny where we're used to a modern battle. It's just on the whole time, more or less.
Guns firing, people screaming. It's not mostly like that on an ancient battlefield.
Like in World War One, where sometimes you could have towards the end of World War One anyway, you could have a battle that lasts for months.
Yeah.
And even though there's more or less action, it's just constant though.
Yeah.
It is constant, day and night,
Guns
24 hours a day.
24 hours, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Snipers at every single moment.
Yeah.
It's not like that at all.
You're constantly in fear of just being shot, exactly, you could go for most of the day without being in any danger whatsoever, because they're all the way over there, or they're fighting at a mile away. Because that's another thing. The line's probably like a mile and a half long. Like 10,000 men, shoulder to shoulder. That's a very long line. So stuff can be happening over there, and you're nowhere near it. Like you're just like, oh, God, I hope it's going all right over there.
Yeah.
Yes. And then they come up and you do like 5 minutes of like heavy fighting. So you both point, but I mean, like go up against the punching bag and just punch it for a minute and see how you're sweating. It's like you can't do that for a long period of time. And so, if they didn't drive you off or kill you, well, then they're going to run off and then you're like sweating buckets, And so, like, it's always very small windows of time where the action actually happens. Yes.
Most humans, if you don't train, if you're not used to cardio, you do any exercise for 5 minutes and you're really out of breath and sweating and
I mean, I'm sure that these men were a lot fitter than we were because they had to, work the fields all day, they had to walk everywhere, blah, 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 So they're much more physically fit than we are. But still, it's, okay, they get an extra minute or so of sweating out and stabbing each other before they're like, oh, God,
Yeah,
it's just the way it is.
I'm sure their cardio would be a lot better than ours. I mean, we're used to the average person who doesn't train. We're stuffed full of carbs and sugar, and just not used to exerting ourselves particularly. Whereas there would be much more hard-bitten men, of
absolutely.
Course. Okay, so the Telefur thing. In fact, it does seem, although it's not explicitly said, it does seem like it might be some sort of champion v champion call out, because we're told an unnamed, I believe it's unnamed, Anglo-Saxon champion does come down the hill. So there's a one-on-one, but we're told Telefur runs him through with his lance, cuts his head off, and then starts playing around with the head. Again, to goad them, really. So I like that thing. But yeah, they can't charge a full-blown cavalry charge up the slope at Senlac Hill. It's just too steep and the ground's too rough. This goes back and forth for hours and hours until at some point in the late afternoon, sort of the crunch moment happens, where anyone who knows about the Battle of Hastings will know that there's some sort of feigned retreat by the Normans.
Well, I see now. Before we go on, the concept of the feigned retreat is an incredibly effective military tactic, but it's not one that the you have to be well trained to do it, right? Because if pretending to run away can easily become actually, oh God, we're running away, because. Another thing, important thing to remember about any battlefield is that the average soldier knows virtually nothing about what's going on. He's got if he's wearing a helmet, he's got a very, very small window of what's in front of him. And then, okay, well, what is in front of him? Well, all around there are other men, and they're all about head height, and so you can't really see them. You don't have the Rome Total War battle map or anything. You're looking around going, God, whatever's directly in front of me is literally the only thing I can see. And so a feigned retreat, if everyone starts disappearing, a horn blows and you go, oh God, right, okay, and then it turns into a rout. So it's a very difficult thing to do. And the Normans weren't exactly known for feigned retreats, unlike the Mongols or something who used it all the time, who knew exactly what the procedures were. The Normans didn't do this, and so often I think the concept of a feigned retreat is used as an excuse for a bunch of guys routing, actually, and being rallied, by their commander, because it's shameful to have been routed, obviously, and so it's a way of going, oh no, it was a feigned retreat, mate. It's feigned. Don't. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. We didn't run away. Don't be silly.
No, absolutely. I mean, the idea of a feigned retreat is as old as battles.
Yeah.
Deep into ancient times, it was being used here and there. Again, goes in and out of fashion. Some say, it's the most dishonourable thing even to do a feigned retreat.
It is.
And others think,
it's deceptive.
No, it's great. Yeah, it's great. If it wins us the day, who cares?
Exactly.
And although the Normans were not famed for it, apparently William had used it once before.
Oh, had he?
But yeah, they're not famed for it.
To watch the full video, please become a premium member at lotuseaters.com.